Here we go. Okay. All right. Call the meeting to order at 8:33 a.m. We have a quorum, and the first order of business. And I'd like to wait until we have a couple more people for this, but let's leave the election of vice chair to verify that. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the consent agenda, either the consultant or the staff? Well, we don't have the staff. We will go forward then.
I guess we're not live streaming. There's a problem with
I have a
the.
couple of things on the minutes.
I didn't say that. I need it.
Sorry about that. Somehow the live streaming did not quite configure, so we're not live on YouTube. We're just recording, and I'll have to post it afterwards.
I don't think that's anything I said. But
No, that was when I hit live streaming. The last meeting came up.
that's what I
was going to ask who was talking.
And I noticed that. I said, wait a minute, Jerry's not wearing a red shirt.
All right.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. That was a little technical glitch, which I'm going to have to.
I just
Maybe because we switched the meeting. Yeah.
Tyrika, unmute. You're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. I know that I introduced Tyrika to everybody via email, and not quite everyone is here. Most of us are. So, Ty, if you would like to just give us a little background of your background and why you were here, other than I asked you.
All right. So I am a real estate broker. I lived here in Bloomfield for the past 9 years. I'm here to try to give my expertise and guidance in this field as much as I can. I'm representing you guys. As Bonnie said, I'm of the younger generation, representing us and how we can contribute to Bloomfield. I'm really just here. I want to learn. I want to be able to put my valuable input, but I got to see how everything, runs within the committee. And I just want to be an asset.
Thank you. And your husband also is a small business owner in town, correct?
Yes, he's a landscaper.
So that's something we're very much interested in having. Nyanda is also a small business person. The rest of us come out of different kinds of backgrounds, of which I think I've given you. But yeah. Welcome. We are very, very happy to have you here. And feel free to say anything you want to say, basically. We're a pretty welcoming group here. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let me welcome Tyrika.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, welcome, Tyrika.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome, Tyrika.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And welcome.
Thank you. Oh, FYI, I have a 1-year-old, so I'll probably just mute my phone because he'll be talking.
Okay. Unless you'd like to contribute, we always want the really younger generation here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lenny hopefully is going to be here. He told me he thought he'd have to leave early, but we'll see. Okay, I'm going to go back to the election of officers. As you all know, Michelle is no longer on the commission, and she served as vice chair. And I would like to make a nomination, and then I will entertain other nominations. I would like to nominate Jerry Katrinas as the new vice chair.
I will second.
Okay, are there any other nominations coming before us?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, I'll entertain a vote to approve Jerry as the new vice chair of the EDC. All those in favor?
Madam Chair, just ask 3 times.
I've asked, okay. That's like Rosh Hashanah. Is that what you're telling me there?
No, but you're supposed to ask 3 times.
The Jewish high holidays, the only way you can be forgiven by God is you have to ask the people you're wrong 3 times. Then when they say forget it, then God can talk to you. Okay, so maybe that's what Steve's talking about. Okay, second time, any nominations? A third time, any nominations?
I motion that the nominations be closed and that the chair or the secretary be enabled to cast 1 vote for all parties for Jerry Katrikas.
I second that.
Any questions, discussions, comments, deletions? Therefore, I will cast one vote. And I guess, Steve, you are going to be our resident parliamentarian for me from now on, because you can see that's not my forte.
Jerry,
You're in trouble then.
Gary. Jerry, welcome again. No, congratulations.
Yes.
Going once, going twice, sold to the man in the blue shirt.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate very much your stepping up and filling this position. Unfortunately, I won't be traveling as much as usual, but once I can get on a plane again, you got a lot of work to do. So, okay. Consent agenda. We do not have the written report for staff since Jose actually left the country again in August. So we'll get that next month. We do have the written report from the consultants. Are there any questions, additions, deletions on those? Okay, hearing none, those are approved. Right, Steve? Okay. And same thing with the minutes, that we will be looking at the minutes. You're in trouble too. We'll be looking at the minutes next meeting, which is going to be in September. Okay, any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Presentations. The old business, this tax abatement request for 175, 185 West Newbury Road. Do we have anybody here?
No, we don't have anyone here for that.
And I would just, I'll just let the board, the commission know when I was telling Jose, in Jose's absence, a representative from this group approached me about making a presentation and how they would be received. And I basically gave them the feedback that we had given to one another, that we were looking for something that was a job creation entity. We were looking for something that was a little more specific, and that I did not think she was going to get a terribly favorable response. But then again, I was just giving her my opinion, haven't heard from her since. So we'll see what happens. And this is for, Tyrika, this is for a tax abatement, which was that regulation was passed, what, 10 years ago, maybe?
No, the new policy was fairly recent. So I want to say 5 years, maybe.
Okay.
Mike, I think we worked on it. It was just as the old council was transitioning to the new council. I think the old council, one of the last things they did was pass that.
I think
So-
that's right, Jose. Well, 5 years ago.
Pass the policy.
Originally,
Pardon?
when did we put the tax abatement policy in originally?
Wow, I don't think we had an actual policy. We were just following the state statutes that allowed us to do up
I never
to.
went through, that was just.
And they
state
changed, yeah, it was like, I think it was up to 7 years, up to
policy, right?
100%. So we just followed their, on a case-by-case basis.
Okay,
And I think that's when the council felt they needed a policy to sort of guide people before they applied, and not waste everyone's time if they didn't quite meet the policy suggestions.
which is part of the reason why we asked them to come before us, because we
Right.
also can say that to them informally and give them some guidance. Okay, well, you might want to reach out to them and see if that is now to be taken off the agenda.
Yeah, I'll reach out.
The second item on the agenda, I've again asked Jose about the timing on this. As most of you may remember, when the Bloom Farm application was being considered, tell me if I'm right about this, Jose, the first thing that was done was this commercial zoning district was approved, and that was by their request. Am I correct?
Correct. It was their application, their proposal. They listed the basically it was an I-2 light, or I-1 light.
I wonder.
Yeah, so it was they took the I-1 district, which allows a whole bunch of different things, including retail and even manufacturing, and made it just a commercial zone. Included in there were a lot of uses that the commission felt maybe not appropriate in the commercial zone, or wanted a little bit, and then he felt there may be other uses that weren't listed that might be appropriate. They passed what the applicants proposed, and they asked if at some future date to revisit it, and they asked me to seek out your input on the uses that may be appropriate for that zone. So things are still in there, like cemeteries and golf courses, which they basically took out all the what quote unquote noxious uses of the I-1 zone and repurposed it as a commercial zone. We obviously, we don't have any commercial zones. The request for a zone change to commercial failed. So, or they withdrew before it failed.
Right.
So, you know, now's the time to look at it and maybe change it, to tweak it, to
This is
fine tune it.
on our agenda for 3 sessions with no action taken. And what I'm going to recommend is, as we get into a discussion of what the next meeting is going to involve. The next meeting, as I think I've mentioned before, I would like to have nothing on the agenda other than a retreat type of discussion, who we are, what we want to do. And I think this is part of what would tie into it, because if we talk about the uses that we do or do not think should appear in the commercial zone, that will be the conversation about what our vision is of the town and where we think the growth of the town should happen. So I'd like to defer that to the September meeting as part of this general discussion.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion? Maybe, whoops, so somehow I almost lost you guys. If each commission member takes a look at that list and sort of makes their own list as to what they would think would be appropriate in a commercial, that way, you know, and either submit it to me by email and that could start the discussion. I can, you know, put it all together and see where there's convergence on some uses, and then maybe the ones that certain people mentioned but others didn't, we can discuss those.
I think that's a great idea.
I think the ones that we have agreement on, I think, are fairly easy, but both which ones should be removed and which ones might be added.
And maybe a tickler to with a progress report of getting this done, because we seem to have an awfully hard time getting this done.
Well, that's why I suggest just to start with everybody doing their own list.
And Tarika, if you need any assistance from either Jose or myself, because you're jumping into this pond sort of, you know, cold, please don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, I'll try to send her Tarika. I'll try to send you the material that I previously sent to the commission. So you're not starting off cold.
Yes, I was going to ask for that so I can take a look at it and see if I can put my input in there.
Great, thank you. Okay, next item, Bob, and I'm sorry I never got back to you. I know you wanted to talk to me a little bit about this, but I guess we'll have to share it with the whole group. So Bob is the head of the subcommittee on public art and other initiatives to attract visitors. And I think you have an update, am I correct?
Yeah, yes, I do. There has been, as you all know, I'm quite candid in being frustrated publicly about the pace. However, they have, when I say they, I'm referring to the town council, has received enough nominations and now confirmation of commissioners to the Bloomfield Arts Commission. And the liaison with the town is Elizabeth Lane, who many of you know is the head of the library, actually a full-time position on staff. And she is an excellent choice. I've been in touch with her a couple of times since since the number of commissioners has been confirmed, and we are having our first meeting of the Arts Commission the end of the end of September. It has not yet been scheduled, but we'll be following all the rules and procedures for commissions, much like ours. Will be open to the public, regular meetings with management, a chair, etc. So I can't tell you more detail than that. I have been asked, and presumably the other commissioners as well, to develop a preliminary agenda of what the commission's purposes will be, how we will manage art projects, and it gives us a vehicle for the first time in town to actually advance some of the things we've been talking about for a number of years, including public art, which would be connected with the town projects specifically the new library project, which, at least on my agenda, has a very high priority for having some form of public art. And by public, I mean permanent installation, as well as other locations in town, both branches of the library. And on my personal agenda, which I will report back to our commission here, I would also like to advocate that art be made a mandatory component of all major private development projects. So if an apartment building or a new building or use at Winterberry Mall, for instance, was approved, that we would advocate for art to be a portion of that. So there is progress procedurally. In terms of content, nothing yet.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I just want to make a comment. There was an article in the Hartford Courant this morning regarding a second fundraiser that West Hartford is doing with public art. The first one was the cow parade. And we have some of those cows in Bloomfield, and some of them have been on the lawn of the Congregational Church for quite a while. We had hoped to put those on the town green, and we're not permitted to do that. The second fundraiser for West Hartford is going to be bears, since that's what everyone's been seeing in their backyard during the pandemic. I think we ought to think about doing something. What they did there is that individual businesses supported an artist. They would provide them with about $800 worth of supplies. The artist would then create the bear, and it would be placed on somewhere in the, I think they're going to be in Blueback Square. And then the money, there would be a fundraiser. The money raised by that particular artist, that particular bear, went to an association that the business nominated. So each one of these bears is going to be supporting a different entity. That's one way of doing it. You can also do it as a major project. We have a couple of things, and we also did this in Ludlow, Vermont. We did llamas because it was just an L. Anyway, we could do two things. We could do drums, which are okay because we do have the drummer boy. But if anyone ever noticed, we also have geese that are on the drummer boy statue, and that's supposed to be an homage to our agricultural background. Could do geese, and geese could be kind of interesting, and they're small. They wouldn't be terribly expensive. So, Bob, that's something maybe you and I will talk about and see if we, once the elections are over, see how town council feels about it.
Yes, and let me pick up on that. Some of you may know, but it's slightly obscure. The bear chosen as an icon for the Art League in West Hartford is tied to the fact that their first sculpture, I don't know how many of you ever visit the Art League, but I was involved with that when they first started doing sculpture around town, and I view that as a model for us to eventually have more public art. They have a commissioned permanent sculpture, very large. It's actually 2 or 3 times the size of a real bear, sitting on the hill at the Art League. So tying it into something iconic for the town, not just a cow, but something that has some meaning, we could also use for promotional purposes in other contexts, arts festivals, public events. So we could even perhaps, and we'll talk about it more, Bonnie, have this could be a first contact with the public in Bloomfield, asking for nominations for what should be our iconic creature. So.
Okay, any other comments or questions of Bob? No, just hang in there, Bob. Things will happen. Denise?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell Bob, as you know, we're working with the state of Massachusetts doing some COVID recovery, but as part of the public record, they have up some compendiums which they've done on cultural and arts to Institute for Towns and Cities. And Bob, if you'd like, I'd be happy to share some of those with you.
Please do, Denise. Yeah.
They have some great ideas of projects that have already been done. and projects that are in the works, I think that, can be adapted to any town.
And just in closing, very quickly, as most of you know, Tyreka, you would not have heard about this before, but I've already had meetings with a number of neighboring towns and gotten very positive response to do things cooperatively and collaboratively in our mini region. So if we come up with a good idea, we may be able to share with West Hartford or Windsor or Simsbury and vice versa. So we might be able to eventually have a tour, a parade of our various town projects. So thank you. Please do send that to me, Denise.
Okay.
And Bob, thank you for your perseverance. As I said, I am absolutely convinced it will pay off eventually.
Oh, I know it will.
Okay, good. Under new business, and any comments from the public? Questions? Diane, you're just setting up, okay. New business, discussion of the new cannabis legislation. Now, I know you sent it to us, Jose. I also know that there's a moratorium on it. So I don't know whether this is something we want to discuss now or we want to hold off on discussing.
Yeah, I just want to update you on Thursday night that actually the moratorium goes into effect tomorrow for until April. There's a moratorium on any applications for cannabis establishments. My initial reaction when the legislation came out and I saw a lot of towns going to moratorium was why? Because we can't really sell it till July 1st. But there's a little provision in the legislation that says anybody can apply at any time if you don't have any set rules, they basically can apply under similar type uses that you currently allow in your regulations. So I wasn't sure. I mean, the way I see it, we're probably going to regulate it the same way we're going to regulate alcohol anyway. I mean, obviously, we just don't want to do it by site plan. We want to make sure it's located in the right spots. They have separation distances from schools and churches and sensitive playgrounds and such. So that debate will come up in the next few months, hopefully before April. We'll be able to get a regulation that everybody can agree on. And I know the council was supportive of the legislation, so I'm assuming, and I can't speak for the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I would imagine they would be supportive of the retail sale and also the growing of it. When medical marijuana came into play, I know the Planning and Zoning Commission at one point was considering a request to put something in on Britton Drive. And at that time, looking back through what some of Tom's notes on there was the fact that the commission considered that to be manufacturing. So they didn't really see a need for any new regulation since the state regulates, the heck out of them. They had like 90 pages of regulations as to everything from security to who can enter what parts of the building, permissions and all that. So I don't see us over-regulating it, letting the state do its thing. And the only catch to this one is that the state's going to have to license people to do it. And those regulations haven't come down yet. They just formed an equity council that's going to come up with suggestions. So I think a moratorium is good until we get more guidance from the state. So one of the things is that we get one grower, one per 20,000 people. So, or 25,000 or any part thereof. So we're basically going to have one grower and one retail. I'm not sure about the growers, but anyway. So how do we issue those? I've been getting calls. I got one yesterday. I got one last week. Tom Manager's getting calls. I think Mayor's getting calls from people in Florida, people in Massachusetts that are running things saying, "Are we accepting applications?" And I told them we've got a moratorium going on. So I think we need to figure some things out as to who, what comes first. Does the state licensing come first, or does the state going to require us to get an approval before they issue a license? But
It's I can add in to Jose's comments. It's a hot topic. We're working for probably 30 towns right now on a variety of similar issues, and in every single one of those, I mean, it's a topic. Massachusetts, of course, allows it, and the discussion going on in Massachusetts now is licensing of delivery operations. So they would be non-retail. You wouldn't be able to go and buy anything at the premises. It's strictly a last mile delivery operation. So towns in Massachusetts are trying to decide on, how many delivery operations do they want to allow. So I think you're going to see a lot of seminars and discussions about this here in Connecticut over the next few months. And the experience Jose is seeing with people calling to try to apply, I mean, everybody's going through that.
Yeah,
And,
there's a lot of national retailers in Mass right now that, they're in multiple states. I have one town that we were working with that actually is opening their 4th store. And Jose, if you want to look into the delivery stuff, Taunton was the first one to do that, Mike, when we were having the discussion on the SMEs.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Mike,
anyway.
do we know if there's a limit on or a number of these various activities? Because when I read the regulation, it isn't just growing and retail, it's delivery, manufacturing. There are all kinds of things in there.
There's different licenses. I think we sort them out.
They're
That
different.
we need to sort out as to how much we can have of each. And I've seen the signs. Actually, I think they do have delivery masks because
Yes.
going down there, I've seen signs call with phone numbers as I going into Boston that have phone numbers on them for delivery services.
Town by town as to whether or not a town wants to allow a delivery operation in it. And
so they're way more advanced than we are. And I have gotten at least 2 or 3 calls from people that currently have either grow operations or hybrid operations, grow and sale.
There will be questions around, does the town want to allow smoking in public? I mean, are you going to allow people to smoke marijuana on the street, for example?
Some towns already banned. I mean, people can smoke now. As of July 1st, you can use, and I think individuals can grow, and you can use marijuana legally. Where you can do it is up to the town, I think. And I don't know what the council's going to.
I think you're doing the right thing to sort of use the moratorium to give you a chance to pause and consider some of these issues and listen to what's being discussed out there. I know the Hartford Business Journal is planning maybe a day-long seminar on the retail cannabis business, which I think is planned for November 3rd, if I understood it correctly, the day after the election. So, but I think that's just one of what you're going to see as many of these discussions.
And I'll send along some links. The CCAPA and Casio put together a very good seminar with some attorneys, some well-known attorneys, and I think they've posted it online just before I left. So for vacation, and I'll send you guys links. I think those are a lot of the questions that were asked and answered there.
And cultivation is in a building only. Is that correct? It's not open air cultivation?
I believe so, because really, if you want to have a year-round operation here in the Northeast, you got to have an indoor. And that's the way they've been doing the medical marijuana cultivation. Now, I would imagine that that's going to be treated as any other manufacturing operation. I don't see where we're going to really regulate the cultivation of it any differently than we would any other. And that's the way we were going to do it for medical. I mean, when someone asked, I think the commission never, I don't think was ever asked or never gave an opinion on the dispensaries. But I know when I was in Branford, we treated it as a pharmacy use. We didn't do any new regulations. We just said it's sort of a medical clinic. You have to make an appointment. It was so regulated that we felt that we were just going to treat it as a medical clinic and allow it as by special use, and we approved it very quickly.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I have a couple. First of all, and all due respect, Rika and Nyanda, nothing to do with your personal habits, but in terms of age group, most of us on the commission here are older, and so your reference, Mike, to smoking, I think we should be very clear and understand that that's one of many ways that cannabis is delivered and sold, and it becomes a retail issue because actually the majority of cannabis use now by these stores and dispensaries is in edibles. And so we should see that coming down the road. I don't know anything about it, how it needs to be handled, but there may be demand, pressure, and use of it as edibles. The other I would point out just on a personal exploratory basis, I was at a social event, a very small group over this past week, and took a little straw poll of the people there, what they would think about our having, cannabis dispensary or sales retail. And their initial reaction was, well, I don't know, there are issues. But when we got down to really discussing the fact that it could be economically beneficial and that we would be surrounded by towns that people could go to in any event, they were very much in favor of it, that it is of a huge economic benefit to the town. So I passed that along for all our consideration on the commission. It's very complicated, but in fact, very important, economic development.
We need to get it right. I think, town stands to gain a 3% tax on these uses. And one of the questions I had, and I think will be a challenge when we do a regulation, because we can only have one that we can approve. I think we need to find out whether we can set a time limit. I would hate to have somebody from another town come in, get their approval in Bloomfield and wait 7 years to, so that sort of to head off any competition. So you might start seeing some of that, and maybe I'm a little bit paranoid, but I could see that happening because of the limitation that someone that has a retail operation in a neighboring town may apply for Bloomfield and get their approval, and then take their time building it. So one of the things we need to consider is can we and should we set fairly strict time limits so that 3% benefit is realized.
I think it's also incumbent upon us to see what the equity requirements are, particularly for the town of Bloomfield, to make sure that that's a key component of our consideration.
Yeah, and they have that equity council that the governor, I believe, just a couple of weeks ago named the chair. And I don't think it's been fully formed yet. So, knowing how these things go, they're supposed to report, I believe, by February. Mike, I'm not sure.
I think that's right, Jose. Yeah.
But they take their time, and I don't know what. Again, we wait for the regulations. I don't see how towns can accept applications and approve them till we know more from the state.
No, you're right.
Can TPZ, do they have is it legal for them to give a weighted opinion towards a resident owner rather than an out-of-town owner?
I don't believe so. I mean, we regulate the use, not the user. I mean, that's what the courts have always said. You can't, you got to treat the New York, I always use the New York developer is the same way as you would a local guy. In theory, legally, that's we've always been told we have to regulate the use, not the user.
Especially if it is the delivery, mechanism is used, so it could be anywhere online.
I mean, the state's going to regulate this. They're when they formulate regulations, they're going to have. I mean, the bill itself was 300 pages long. I don't know how long the regulations will be, but they're going to cover every aspect of it. So I think it's wise to wait to see what they're coming up with.
Jose, one of the things, there was an article in the Hartford Courant that certain towns were chosen for the social equity aspect of the cannabis, and Bloomfield was named in that list.
Right, yeah, they were. So I don't know if that gives us more. an extra one or not.
Mhm.
But, or what that means in terms, because every town basically gets one.
Yeah.
It's all on how that's implemented.
The question I had, which was answered by OPM, was the liquor control laws state every town, I think, one package store per 5,000
For
people.
5,000, yeah.
But you have to have 5,000 people to get one. So if you don't meet the 5,000 requirement, or if it's 5,001, you only get one. If you don't meet the 5,000, you get none.
Mhm.
But OPM has stated that under the under the recreational marijuana or cannabis legislation, each town will get one up to, it's 20,000, 25,000 people, and each town will at least get one so whether you have 4,000 people or like Bloomfield have 20,000, you're entitled to one. So that's going to be, and some towns are not, and some towns have already come out with a total ban, which was, I think, jumping the gun a little bit too much,
I agree.
since you can't start it till July 1st anyway. But
Any other comments? The only comment I'm going to make is when I saw this pass, I was waiting to see the pigs flying. This up in the 60s or 70s, this was never going to happen. Reefer madness was more the criteria. But anyway, it's going to be a very, very interesting conversation on all kinds of levels. Thank you guys for the information, and we will stay tuned. Yeah, this I'm very interested in, Jose. Do we have a timing for the plan of conservation and development process yet?
yeah, well, we need to get started. I got to get the RFP out soon, within the next week or so. I can't wait too much longer. Fortunately, because of vacations and everything else, it's been put off. But we have the money in the budget for this fiscal year, and the capital improvement budget anticipates additional monies to finish it off in the next fiscal year. We really have a year to go through the process, technically till October. I think, you can usually ask OPM for some forbearance if you're finishing up and whatever, but we got to get that going. I think once we get a consultant in place, then I looked at what happened to the last one. The process was we got a consultant, then we got a steering committee,
right.
Which the planning, it's a planning and zoning commission. They steer they basically, that's their, under the state statute, they're the lead agency for doing the plan of conservation development. So I got to put it together an RFP. I think I already have like a draft one ready to go, but I'll have to tweak it and run it by our purchasing agent who runs, does these and get it out there. So I think the earliest, if I can get it out next couple of weeks, maybe by the end of September, we can have some responses and award, pick a consultant sometime in October and get going this winter time. So I would imagine that someone from the Conservation Commission will be on that steering committee, at least one person. I would imagine the steering committee meetings would be open to the public. Anyone could attend, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for public information and input sessions as part of. One of the things I think we're going to put into the plan of conservation, into the RFP is public participation has changed a lot in 10 years. There's more people with computers. There's different ways of collecting information and getting people's input, not necessarily having the same 10 people show up at a meeting every time and influencing the discussion. So I'm going to be looking for innovative ways to reach out to people who normally would not be participating in a in-person meeting, especially now with the COVID protocols and people being afraid to meet in public. So hopefully we'll get that going by the end of, like I said, by the end of the month, next couple of weeks, get the RFP out and get the process moving.
Jose, has our new town manager been through this process in Florida? Do they do the same thing?
I'm sure they do. I don't know for sure. I can't speak for them, but I'm sure that most states and most towns have they call it different things. They call it the comprehensive plan. We call it plan of conservation development. So I'm sure that this kind of process is fairly standardized throughout the country.
It is. You know, one thing I would add for the consideration of the commission is that this POCD, this round of POCD updates that are being done, you know, the things that have really changed and are going to change how we think about plans of conservation and development is the impact of online retail and the changes that that's forcing on bricks and mortar retail. The other side of that coin is the impact that the online retail is having on the establishment of logistics operations, last mile delivery, all kinds of, you know, forwarding, freight forwarding facilities. If you look, if you've gone by the Route 20 access off of 91, pardon me, into the airport, you can now see the largest building ever built in Connecticut. It's 3.5 million square feet. The previous largest building was the old JCPenney distribution warehouse over in Manchester off of 84. It was about 2.5 or 2.2 million square feet. This facility at the entrance, Route 20 exit to the airport, at 3.5 million square feet is, you know, 50% larger. And that's an Amazon warehouse. And one of, I think, a total of 80, I believe, that will be, that'll be the 80th or around the 80th here in Connecticut. So, you know, not likely that Bloomfield is going to see an application for a building that size, but what is likely is a lot of last mile delivery operations. You may be aware that Walmart has really now gotten into that business as well, and they're now offering their logistics delivery operations to other retailers. So they're going to be building similar facilities as Amazon, large and small. You know, they need the 3.5 million square feet, but they also need the 40,000 square feet. So I think the impact of online retail is a big change. The second big change is the impact of work from home. And when you have large companies that are now giving 50% of their employees the ability to work from home 40 to 50% of the time, the demand for office space changes dramatically. And we're seeing that already in the world that we work in. So I think this round of POCDs is going to be a very interesting round. It's not going to be sort of a refresh like we've done typically of the previous one. It's going to need some thought this time around.
Yeah.
To position towns so that they are responding effectively to the changes in the industry.
Steve, I have a question for you. If you don't mind, you may or may not be able to answer, but I know you're fairly involved with the Democratic Town Committee, or at least the Democratic Party in town. I understand that the two slates that are running are not going to have any kind of a debate. Have either of them ever taken a position on the upcoming plan of development?
Not generally. I think both of them, and Plan and Row B in particular, has talked a little bit about the work for a Woodbury Mall. But if anything that I've seen on just the palm cards and the mailers is more of a concern on the part of Row A in terms of not favoring the developers, or what seems to me, at least, and this is maybe my own personal opinion, it appears to be more opposed, not opposed is probably too strong a word. More consideration needs to be given to the population in Bloomfield as opposed to the developers. It seemed a little bit to me, a little anti-developer.
Well, there certainly is that. We know from the Bloom Farm application that there is a pretty strong grassroots feeling against it. Whether it's local or not is something else we're not really sure of. But on this note, I'm not going to be political, but since we are a largely one-party town, the Democratic primary is September 14th. If you are registered and able to vote, I strongly recommend it, because this is in a town such as ours where we're 85% Democratic, something like that. This will be the election, and it's going to be decided by a very small number of people if history proves it's true. So
the Democratic Town Committee itself has not taken a position. So I just want to make sure it's clear. These are the individual slates.
I-
But the party itself has not taken a position.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any other questions or comments about the plan of conservation and development? And this is, again, going to be a topic I think we should use as a template for our next meeting. And Mike, I got your email. Yes, I would very much like some help putting the meeting together because I think it's very important. So stepping stone for us at this point. Okay, hearing no other conversations about that, are there any commission member updates? Okay. Any public comment? Okay. I'm assuming that we don't have all the folks that we normally have attending because of the election, the upcoming primary, because usually we have a number of council people that are in attendance. All right. Town project updates, Jose?
Yeah, just some highlights. As you know, the building across right outside my window is starting to loom over. They have added a fourth story, so that's effectively blocking any view I had of that out. But it's coming along really well. I don't know the time frame for completion, but it's a good sign. I think that we've already that was originally phase 3 of the 3-phase town center apartment buildings that were approved for 415 units. Heirloom Flats was phase 1. Phase 2, which is on Jerome Way, just last week applied for a zoning map amendment. So that's coming up soon. And I think we're going to get plans, at least at the wetland stage, very soon. So that's a good sign that phase 2 is going forward. That will be the last phase of that development, and I believe that'll bring it up. You know, this one across the street's about 42. I'm not sure 42 or 48 units. Phase the one on Jerome will be about 140 units. Mr. Butler has obtained the necessary easements or rights to the CLMP or to Eversource, excuse me. I'm still using I'm aging myself, but to the Eversource right of way there. So you'll be able to put out a driveway to and build a spur, continue Jerome Way across the street from Jerome and not have to come out on Jerome directly. You'll be able to come out with a driveway. There'll be a 4-way stop. And that'll help the traffic situation there. The phase 4 was approved by the master plan, at least was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission back on July 22nd, just before I left. So that was anticipated for I believe somewhere around, I forgot the number of units, but as you know, Mr. Paul Butler bought up all the homes basically from the light at the Jerome Way, diagonally across from Heirloom Flats all the way down to Gab Road and around the corner to the brook. So all those properties are under his control. I think he's also negotiating with Eversource for that little piece that's between that blue house and the medical office buildings to perhaps do something with that as an amenity rather than be part of the SED. I think master plan showed that as possibly a dog park, but again, that's all up in the air. But the master plan has been approved. It still needs to. That will allow him to get all his technical people, spend some money on engineering and architecture, and really fine tune the plans. He'll have to go back before the design review board and the Planning and Zoning Commission for detailed site plan review and approvals. So that's still a few years, according to his schedule. That's at least a year and a half down the road. I think he's going to concentrate on obviously finishing up phase 2, which is well along, and then the one on Jerome. And then once that's done, I think hopefully the market will still be there. People are still talking apartments. There's apartments being built on at the end of Jolly Drive also, which are nice luxury apartments. And I think there was 40 approved at Corporate Crossing as well. So the people are still applying, and I've been talking to people about the possibility of adding more residential units to the Cigna campus. So I don't know where this will stop, the apartment boom, but it seems to be still going strong.
You'll know the second after the last one doesn't get rented out. We've all seen this, Mike, right? This is such a trend. How about moderate income housing? Are we in compliance with the number of units we have in the town at this point?
Well, right now we're at 10 point something percent. So I mean, I know, compliance is, we barely got enough to avoid Section 8-30G, which allows developers to bypass zoning and propose multifamily densities that are greater than what the regulations would allow. So we're still past that, and I think part of the discussion that we're going to have, we do have an affordable housing plan grant of, I think it's only 15,000 that we need to come up with a plan for how to address affordability. We do have a good mix of housing units. I mean, we allow duplexes as of right in certain zones. As you can see, what's happening on Privilege Drive, they've been really successful in renting them out. Again, those are not affordable though.
Yeah.
You would think that with all those housing units on the market, that there would be some downward push on rents, but that's not the case. So we do a lot. We do have good regulations allow it, but I think we need to go further probably at some point and provide incentives for affordable housing, density bonuses for a greater percentage, and come up with a strategy for coming up with bolstering our base anyway. I can just see if all these apartments get built at market rate, we're going to drop down below the 10%. That's just do the math, and it won't take too many more apartments before we get down below that 10%.
Affordable housing is our owner units considered part of affordable housing?
Yeah, if they're again, the state definition is income restricted and price restricted. Affordable. And they have to be dedicated, deed restricted, to which is another debate whether you're allowing low and moderate income people to have the benefits of accumulating wealth through their real estate appreciation. If you deed restricted, you're sort of cutting that off to a certain extent. So,
explain deed restricted to us, Jose.
Pardon?
Explain deed restricted to us, please.
Well, typically you have to put a deed that you can only sell it to people of a certain income range and at a price that is no more than 30% of their income or something like that. So whatever restrictions on affordability are put down there are put on the land record. So when you do sell a house, you can't sell it at market value.
I think you're allowed a certain amount of appreciation, but it's limited. The amount of appreciation you can recoup is limited, Bonnie.
Right.
Okay. I mean, this is really a conversation. I'm surprised we haven't had more of it, just because of the amount of high-end housing that's being built in town. I know there's I hear on the sites, on the Facebook sites, there's a lot of talk about it. Sadiq, do you have your hand raised, or is that just?
Yeah, I had a few just questions. If Jose can update us on a few of the other items. A lot is going on in the area. I see, for example, we had the two developments coming up. One was on the intersection of Gab Road and Bloomfield Avenue. And the old one was like Ruby Tuesday building, being, taken over and medical facility being developed. And there is one next to the library, and behind the library on the opposite side of the library is that, broken building, which is not being developed, but there is some development going on the side of the library. What is the update on those two, projects that were, one on the Ruby Tuesday building and also the Gap and Bloomfield intersection?
There's nothing new other than the fact that the Planning and Zoning Commission did approve the changes to the design development zone that would allow medical instead of retail at that zone.
But is there construction
No,
starting?
nothing's been applied for or any, they would still have to come back into planning and zoning for a site plan review. So I haven't heard anything from them as to what a time frame is for doing that. So I know Denise has been trying to relocate the tenants, so she may know a little bit more as to,
Yeah, those tenants currently have leases that run through December. And so they can't do anything to the building until they get them out of there. And we are working with one in particular that is trying to move within Bloomfield right now.
Yeah, with respect to the building north of the library, that was approved sort of on spec, that either as a restaurant or medical office. I think that the facade is being renovated right now. They pulled back the old false front that got damaged by the fire back to the original facade, and they're fixing that up. And they're still doing a lot of remediation in the back because of the gas station that was next door, caused a lot of soil contamination. So they're gonna, that's taking a while. That's gonna be digging out soil and putting back clean soil there. Behind the building, behind the brook, is part of the library. The town owns it. It's part of the plans for the new library that have been put forth by the library building committee, that we're going to use that as parking. The bridge over the brook, a pedestrian bridge, is at least the latest plans I've seen. And that was going to go to referendum, I believe, in November. So we'll see what happens with that. And the corner Gab and Bloomfield Avenues is what I mentioned before, is phase 4 of apartment buildings that got master plan approval and would have to come back for more detailed plans now that they've gotten that approval.
There was another news item in the press about somebody buying the Jewish school on Gab Road, the academy.
My understanding was it's a group that's going to be still using it as a school. I know there was some speculation, I think, because the person who was heading up the group that was buying it also was developing apartments in Long Island or New York.
Yeah.
But my understanding, at least from what I heard from one of the potential buyers that was told, who was told not that there's someone else that actually was purchasing it for the use of the school. I haven't heard otherwise. So no one's approached me. I would assume if they were going to try to do apartments, they would. I mean, it's a residential zone. It wouldn't be allowed at this point. They would have to come in for zone changes and a whole bunch of different things. So if they use it as school, they don't have to come in for anything really, as long as they use it exactly as the way it was originally approved.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Diana, and then Steve.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I had asked earlier to be excused early from the call. Today is International Overdose Awareness Day, and my client, Greater Hartford Harm Reduction Coalition, pretty much does much of the work surrounding substance abuse. So I will be going there today to just show support. If any members of this team would like to take part in a overdose training or Narcan training, you can email me and we could set something up. Just on statistics, 97,000 people overdose this year in the US, and we had 1,400 overdose in CT. Since the organization started in 2015, they have distributed 13,000 Narcan to individuals. So just to bear in mind, again, today is International Overdose Awareness Day, and I'm jumping off the call to go show my support.
Thank you, Nyanda. Thank you for the information.
Have a good day.
You too. Steve?
Thank you. I just, one question regarding the old Hebrew Academy on Gab Road that Sadiq was talking about. Since that's residential, is it possible for this group to turn this into a seminary type of situation and turn some of the classrooms into living arrangements together with education?
Don't know. I'd have to look into our regulations. I think they would definitely need additional planning and zoning commission approvals to do so, I think.
Okay, all right.
But my understanding was it was going to be considered a high school, but maybe. I mean, as an accessory use, perhaps. I you know, that wouldn't be too far fetched. You know, there are examples if you have a, you know, they have prep schools, high schools that have dormitories and living facilities. So, but again, there wasn't any approvals for that in the way it was operating. So they would have to come back and get additional approvals to do that.
The other thing is just a concern to complete streets and the whole center walking ability. Since Bloomfield Village has done such a nice job on the front of their building, I've occasioned it, and I've noticed a lot of people crossing the street, rushing across the street, or walking on the shoulders, because in some areas there are sidewalks, in some areas there aren't sidewalks. How far are we along with the state either doing something at the Bloomfield, that multi-disc road center with circles, or being able to put sidewalks in to accommodate the people who appear to be walking more frequently? Yeah,
I can tell you that sidewalks are pretty, the design for the sidewalks on the west side of that, going up from Philly Park to the light at Geisler's, are pretty well along, and I think we anticipate we'll be ready for construction in the spring. So, you know, there'll be a light there, there'll be a walk light, so you'll be able to at least use the sidewalk to get to there. I know it's been on our radar to perhaps extend sidewalks on the on the east side. But again, that hasn't been funded yet, but we did get some monies from I believe CROG.
Okay, how about the bend in the road by Allied right across the street, which would be the gap between Philly and where the sidewalks end, I guess, are somewhere a little further down.
To where, excuse me?
I guess it's between Philly by Allied. So what you're talking about in the plan for the spring is by Allied.
Yeah, it would start with where the sidewalks end, and you know, it would connect the sidewalk at Philly all the way up to the light.
Okay, so it would cover that. It would.
Right, and yeah, so there'll be a straight connection that way, and then you'll be able to have a crosswalk over. You'll still have, you still won't have sidewalks on the west side, but at least get you there, and you'll be able to get to either Bloomfield Village just on a shorter by crossing where the new gas station is, and I think they do have it's a gas station, so there's not a lot of sidewalks, but I think they had a little bit of sidewalk there, so to get you down there. The rest is something that we'll certainly consider when the capital improvement budget comes around, which should be soon. Budget seasons again seems to start fairly quickly after the old one, but I know it's on our radar, and people keep mentioning the fact that, and I've walked it, and you can see there's a beaten path, so people do walk up to Geisler's on that side of the road.
Okay, thank you.
Was this not a part of phase 4 project? I think the owner did say that he's going to build a dog park and also the walking place from Gab Road to Geisler.
Right. I think even the across the street, as you know, the sidewalk ends where the medical buildings or the office buildings end.
Yeah.
So part of this phase that's being constructed, when it's done, should have a sidewalk connected all the way out to the intersection. So you'll be able to walk basically from Jerome Way all the way to the intersection. There'll be sidewalks on both sides of Bloomfield Avenue. And as part of phase 4, you would then connect from Gab Road up to there. So you'll have a continuous sidewalk, very walkable center. As you know, there wasn't any sidewalks until Heirloom Flats was constructed, and those sidewalks are used daily. If you go out there anytime, you'll see people walking their dogs from the apartments and walking around the town center. So I think once everything gets done, you'll have a nice loop. And then the only loop to finish is that one up on the north side of, not on the north side, on the east side of, by the cemetery, in front of the cemetery, to connect that out to Geisler. So hopefully, that'll get done. But at least we'll have a light with a walk signal. The other one we couldn't get, unfortunately, is a sidewalk up to Alexandria Manor, which will be 45 residential units. The bridge that Condot replaced recently. I don't know if we dropped the ball or somebody else dropped the ball, but it was too narrow to put sidewalks on there. So, excuse me, I'll get rid of this phone call. Yep, sorry about that. But anyway, the only thing that we did do sort of as a sort of patchwork concession was put ask that Alexandria Manor put a walking trail down to Philly Park. It does abut it. So, at least during good weather, people could use the walking trails at Philly to get down to the town center. Unfortunately, the sidewalk on that side of the street, because of the bridge, they'll have to chance it, I guess, when they're walking along there.
Jose, 2 quick questions. Phase 3, do you know when that's going to be completed? Because it just seemed like it stopped dead in its tracks for a long time.
Which of the apartments?
Yeah, the apartments, the ones that are closest to the center.
Yeah, those. Well, I think there was a couple of issues. They had a developer that was interested and had drawn up plans, but I think when they started doing their wetlands and soils analysis, for some reason, they couldn't do what they wanted to do. So I think Paul Butler, Heirloom Flats, he basically sold the development rights and Post Road Residential built Heirloom Flats. The phase that's up being constructed now is, Paul Butler is basically doing it himself, doing it as the general charge. And I think that the next phase 3 will be his also. I think not the fact that he's coming in for wetlands means he's ready to go whenever this one's finished. So I don't have a detailed time frame, but I think he's spending money for detailed plans, engineering, and architectural to get to the site plan stage. That's a sizable investment, and I think that'll you can assume that he's going to push forward with that as soon as at a time frame that's fairly quick. As long as the market holds out, I think we're good.
Well, I don't even want to discuss that. In the center of town, the 2 roundabouts, do we have any time frame of that?
Yeah, that's been on hold. I think that the future of the roundabouts is in serious danger. Because of the I think they did some recalculations and they thought that it would be backing up. Their traffic model showed some backups that were not unacceptable. So it's not totally out of the question, but they're rethinking it, and I guess we'll wait to hear from Condot what their thoughts are.
In Glastonbury on Hebron Avenue, just before you get to the Whole Foods there, they have 2 roundabouts, one after the other. they are almost impassable. I think some of the trucks can't get through them, and they have backups that you wouldn't believe.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's usually not, roundabouts usually help.
yeah, please don't.
But in this case, I think they did some modeling and said they had some concerns.
I'm glad to hear that, actually.
So they're putting it on hold till we figure out what. And it may be that we may do, totally reconfigure the way traffic operates in the center and able to put it in a roundabout, but maybe get rid of one of the lights there, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Any other questions of Jose? Mike or Denise, any further reports?
Just a couple of quick comments. One is congratulations, the town of Bloomfield now has a TIF policy.
Yes.
Since we last met, the council approved the tax increment financing policy that Jose has been working on for, I think, 5 years, since you joined Bloomfield.
Yeah.
And a lot of work went into it between Jose and Mike Andriana and our folks. And I think the first conversations we had about it were right after it was approved by the state. The new legislation was approved by the state. So that was the fall of 2015. So it's taken 5+ years, but you now have a tax increment financing policy. But I think the importance of that is that, if you recall, it's aimed at helping to catalyze the improvement and renovation, if you will, or redevelopment of 3 areas: the Wintonbury Mall area, town center, if you will, the Upper Blue Hills area, and the Toby Road area. So I think to the point that Bonnie made about your planning for your retreat, that's probably something that, we put on the agenda for the retreat, is a discussion about, how the town of Bloomfield begins to use that tax increment financing policy. And among other things, one of the things under consideration was the formation of a business improvement district, or a BID. Primarily, the catalyst for that is typically how towns acquire property where the town would like to have greater control over the destiny of the property. So the example we've been using from the beginning is the Wintonbury Mall property. So lots to think about, and you now have the enabling policy, which can kind of help you move forward now. The second quick thing is a little personal note. I'm pleased to announce that Denise Robidoux is now our Chief Operating Officer here at Goldman, New York. So she has
Congratulations, Denise.
Thank you.
yeah, she has a lot of day-to-day responsibilities.
Congratulations today.
Thank you.
Takes a lot of work from me, which is great. It allows
Congratulations, Mike.
Well, you know what it does is it allows us all to kind of focus on our clients, and kind of gets us a little better organized, and a lot of good things. So we're really pleased that Denise is with us and has agreed to take on that role. So
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
News.
Thank you. Just a couple updates on some of the small businesses. I did meet with an owner of one of the hair salons in town. She was considering moving, and so she's still going back and forth, but I did hook her up with her banker to discuss just if she could afford it and what she could afford to do it. So we had that discussion a while ago. I have been working with, like I said, one of the tenants over in the old Ruby Tuesdays Plaza. He is now working directly with the owner of one of the centers in town to see about moving in there.
That's why.
So, okay.
Great. Thank you, Denise. Any additional reporting or information? Okay, we're going to actually get done before 10 o'clock, but I just want to talk a little bit about what the next meeting is going to be. Jose, if you'll just refresh my memory, I think you told me that we can have a meeting in which they're always public because it's a freedom of information, but we can limit comments. Is that correct, from the public?
That's correct. I mean, you can have a meeting, and it could be solely as a retreat from the for commission members and invited guests to comment. You have to have it open for attendees to listen in, but I don't believe you have to allow anyone else to talk if that's your pleasure. Maybe at the beginning and at the end, if you want to have some public comment, that's fine. But I think you can limit in between as to who gets to talk or not.
So it is, I know we've discussed this a number of times. Do I need a vote to change the format, or I just want to get a consensus and this is what people would like to do at our next meeting?
No, I mean, you get to choose the agenda. I mean, it's,
So what
I imagine you know, and if everyone's in agreement, you know, there's a consensus on the record as to what we're going to do. So
what I'm proposing is that no other business be handled other than minutes being approved. And then we'll have public comment at the end. And the meeting will, Mike's group hopefully will be able to facilitate it for us. And we're basically going to talk, like I said somewhere, we're going to talk about who we want to be when we grow up. We're at a point now where I think we've got a very solid commission. I'm hoping at some point we will bring another banker back into it. We're working on that. That would be the last piece that I think we've been missing. Tyreka brings not only small business expertise, but real estate, which is what I've been desperately trying to bring back in here as well. So I think it's time to really talk about, with the plan of development coming up and with the potential new town council being elected in the fall, to talk about our priorities and what kind of input we want to give and where. So is there could I see a consensus? Well, let me try this. Does anyone object to doing the next meeting in this format? Okay, seeing none, that's going to be our next format, which will be Tuesday, September 14th at 8:30. Again, that is also a Democratic primary, but you got all day to vote. Okay.
It's still going to be on Zoom?
Yes, it will still be on Zoom. Unfortunately, I don't see that we are going to be meeting in person till next year.
Oh,
So maybe
okay.
next spring. I think it's just, yeah.
I know the council has approved some monies to sort of equip the meeting rooms for hybrid meetings, but yeah, I don't, you know.
I mean, there are meetings because we've had huge participation increases. I see it both here and I'm the president of our condo association in Vermont. I think people were bored was part of it, but I also sort of, you know, you get to see what's going on in town. So I think there is a plus to it. So yes, Sadiq, it will be by Zoom. Yes.
Yeah, on that note, I also got reminded that there was some report in the press that the situation of COVID is getting a little worse in Bloomfield. Is that true, or it's just, you know, fake news?
In the whole state. I mean, it's not just Bloomfield. I don't think.
Yeah, the mandate, the mask mandate is there for schools and all that. Yeah.
It is.
The entire town.
Yeah. Of course, you know, it's like the liquor laws, but some of our contiguous towns. I think Avon still hasn't passed one, which I just don't understand. But West Hartford, Weathersfield, Windsor, I'm assuming, Hartford, they've all passed mandates. So that will help.
Just, is there any concrete numbers how much it has increased or not?
You can see it. It's published online all the time. I don't remember off the top of my head, and it varies. You know, the senior population, there's very little increase because almost all of us have got a huge vaccination rate. When you get into the younger populations, it's much lower.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any information at all, but that's readily available, Sadiq. You just go online and ask.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems was vaccination in one of the nursing facilities in Bloomfield, but now with the state mandate, I think that will be rectified as well.
I also don't know whether they're counted in Bloomfield or in their residential town, but at least one of the elder facilities in town, the resident population is high 90% plus, but the staff is still in the 70 to 80%. And so I don't know whether there'll be a mandate that they are required to vaccinate before they can continue work. But that has been over the summer statistical fact in one of the elder facilities.
Bob, that was what I was referring to, and I think there is a state mandate now that the employees within those facilities must be mandated or be tested once a week. So,
oh, good. Okay.
I think that's to correct that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. That's correct.
Sadiq,
yeah.
just so you know, there is on the portal.ct.gov, there is a COVID data tracker and you can get the daily rates and everything up on there. And currently it does show Bloomfield in the red.
As are
Um,
all other towns, I think.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I heard. Yeah.
No, there's quite a few that are in the red, but there are still
Yeah.
there's some that are in, in the like northwest corner that has
Yeah,
a lot
the
lower
red,
rates.
yeah, the high school was, I think, reported to be in red zone too,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you can check those rates daily
Yeah.
on there. And I also get updates from the governor if you sign up for his updates on the statewide every day.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Sadiq. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second. Jerry, our new vice chair, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, again, Tarika, welcome. There, I hope you had a good experience your first meeting here. It was pretty mellow. And we'll see you all on September